Segment with the University of Texas at Arlington. I work with TMAC, and I'd like to answer a very basic question which is often asked by people new to this body of knowledge, and that is, what is Lean Six Sigma? So at a very high level, Lean Six Sigma is the integration of two very powerful continuous improvement methodologies, Lean, which is all about the reduction of waste, and Six Sigma, which is about reducing variation. Now, Lean Six Sigma uses a project-based approach. The best practice is one wherein a formal management team, sometimes a steering committee, has responsibility for choosing projects. Those projects are selected based on things like strategic objectives, the potential for financial impact, such as increases in sales or reductions in cost. And the project teams are led by individuals called green belts or black belts, and sometimes other terms are used. And these individuals go through training on Lean Six Sigma tools and methods. Now, another key role is that of project sponsors. Those are the individuals who provide resources to these project teams. Resources could be in the form of people who serve on the team, that could be funding to pay for the changes that are put in place, could be time, all sorts of resources would be appropriate. I'm going to talk a little bit more now about Six Sigma. Six Sigma was developed initially by Motorola back in the early 1980s. Later, many other Fortune 500 companies used Six Sigma. They added to the body of knowledge. General Electric, one of the most well-known proponents of it. And it makes use of a number of different statistical tools and methods. Very important to have support from senior management. As I mentioned earlier, individuals get training. The folks that go through basic training on Lean Six Sigma are called typically green belts, and then advanced training is provided for black belts. And again, the overarching idea with Six Sigma is the focus on reduction of variation. Now, a little bit more on roles and responsibilities. Black belts are these key individuals who are leading project teams, and in essence, their job is to manage change and doing things to change in the sense of improving processes that are broken in some way, shape, or form. Now, the best practice for black belts is that they are fully dedicated. That's all they do all year long is process improvements. Some companies do it differently. They will make use of black belts in a part-time role. But to get the biggest bang for your buck, black belts should be full-time dedicated. Green belts, on the other hand, typically are assigned as project leaders for smaller scale projects, or they serve to assist black belts in terms of doing things like collecting data, analyzing that data, all sorts of project support activities. And then the actual project itself, there's various people who serve on a project team. That could be engineering staff, could be operators. Anybody with firsthand knowledge of the business processes serves a key role on a project team. Now, Six Sigma projects go through 5 different phases, and those are define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. The acronym for that is DMAIC. At the end of each of these phases, a formal project meeting is held called a gate review, or sometimes called a toll gate, and in this meeting a decision is made whether the project is ready to move to the next phase in the DMAIC process. One powerful aspect of the DMAIC approach is that during a gate review, a project can be canceled outright. Perhaps the project is not going to achieve the goals for which it was set out, or in some other way is not going to be successful. The specific tools, the methods, what you're trying to accomplish in each phase of the DMAIC are different. And the final phase, the control phase, is really critical because the goal there is to make sure any changes, any improvements that have been put in place will be sustained. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit now more specifically about what happens in each phase. The define phase is all about determining the very basic aspects of the project. So what is the problem? What is the goal? What is the scope of the work that's going to be done? Who's on the project team? What kind of timeline? All basic project management activities. The measure phase is all about determining where we at today. So a key deliverable for the measure phase is the baseline, some baseline level performance. The analyze phase then is, let's take the data collected from the measure phase and let's focus and determine what is the root cause of the problem we're trying to solve. The improve phase then is, Now that we know from the analyze phase the major root causes, what can we do to come up with solutions to address those? And typically a pilot is run of the solution once it's developed, so a small-scale trial, if you will. The control phase is where the full-scale deployment of the solution is put in place. As I mentioned earlier, control is also about putting in tools and methods to make sure that the solutions are sustained over time. Now I want to talk about lean. Lean was pioneered, as it says, by Toyota and other Japanese companies, but what they did was they went and looked at what Henry Ford had done in the early part of the 20th century in his development of the Model T and what we now call mass production. It's been adopted, and actually the body of knowledge of lean has been expanded by companies literally all over the world. You see some of the commonly used names here. Continuous flow is another term that we use. And one key tenet of lean is the idea of a systems viewpoint. And in many, many lean texts, they talk about the value stream. So the value stream are the series of activities to deliver a product or service to our customer from start to finish. And the goal is to optimize the value stream, not do what it says here, which is a system of local optimums, which is what many, many businesses tend to do. So again, the overarching goal or idea with lean is the elimination or minimization of waste. When we talk about waste, people say, well, what do you mean by waste? All activities in a business process can be categorized into one of three types. Customer value add activities are those where it's an activity that is required to produce output, and it's something that is required to meet customer needs. In other words, something they'd be willing to pay for. And our goal there is to optimize those kinds of activities. Now, on the other hand, if we have an activity that is not required to produce output and it's not required for business or regulatory legal requirements, that would be a non-value add. And so we don't want to get better at doing non-value add, we want to eliminate those activities. So the third category would be activities that are required for legal or business requirements, something, for example, for OSHA or the EPA. Those are what are called non-value add required activities, and our goal is to reduce the time spent working on those. Now we know that actually typically for most business processes, 90%, sometimes much higher, of the overall process lead time is associated with doing these non-value add activities, in other words, wasteful activities. So you can think of non-value add is synonymous with waste. Allow me to wrap this up. So when you think about lean, it's a discipline focused on improving process speed, so time is typically a major deliverable, and eliminating waste, where Six Sigma is more focused on variation reduction and hence better quality, more consistent products and services. Lean Six Sigma is this combination of these two very powerful approaches, and we see that a focus on quality tends to impact speed, and speed also tends to improve quality. If you have any other questions about Lean Six Sigma, please contact us here at TMAC, and thank you very much.